What have you been thinking about today? What thoughts have occupied your mind for the last week, the last month, the last year? Because I'm telling you, those thoughts are shaping your destiny right now, whether you realize it or not. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thoughts, and if you want to change your life, you must first change what goes on between your ears. You see, most people go through life like sleepwalkers. They let their minds wander wherever they will, accepting whatever thoughts happen to drift in. They think thinking just happens to them like the weather. But successful people understand something different. They understand that thinking is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed, refined, and directed towards specific outcomes. The human mind is the most sophisticated computer ever created, yet most people use it like a simple calculator. They use this incredible instrument to figure out what they can't do, why something won't work, or how to get by with the minimum effort. But what if you use that same mind to design your ideal life? What if you use it to solve problems instead of creating them? What if you used it to focus on possibilities instead of limitations? I learned this lesson the hard way. For the first 6 years of my working life, I had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank. I was confused about life, confused about money, confused about how to make things work. I had all the potential in the world, but my thinking was poor. My thinking was scattered. I was thinking about what I didn't want instead of what I did want. I was thinking about my problems instead of solutions. I was thinking like a victim instead of like a victor. Then I met my mentor, Earl Schoaf, and he taught me something that changed everything. He said, Jim, if you want things to change, you have to change. If you want things to get better, you have to get better. And the way you get better is by changing how you think. He taught me that success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. The mind works in a very specific way. Whatever you focus on consistently, whatever you think about repeatedly, whatever you dwell on regularly, your mind accepts as instruction. It doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether what you're thinking is true or false, good or bad, right or wrong. It simply takes your dominant thoughts as orders and goes to work to make them reality. This is why it's so crucial to be selective about what you allow into your mental space. Your mind is like a garden. You can plant flowers or you can plant weeds. You can plant thoughts of abundance or thoughts of scarcity. You can plant thoughts of possibility or thoughts of limitation. You can plant thoughts of success or thoughts of failure. But here's what you cannot do. You cannot plant nothing. If you don't deliberately plant positive, constructive thoughts, your mind will automatically fill itself with whatever random thoughts happen to be floating around in your environment. Think about this for a moment. What kind of thoughts are floating around in your environment? What are the people around you thinking about and talking about most of the time? Are they talking about their dreams and goals and possibilities? Are they discussing ways to improve and grow and contribute? Or are they complaining about the economy, the government, their jobs, their health, their relationships, and everything else that's wrong with the world? You see, most people spend their time rehearsing their problems instead of rehearsing their possibilities. They practice failure instead of practicing success. They visualize everything that could go wrong instead of visualizing everything that could go right. And then they wonder why their lives don't improve. But you can choose differently. You can choose to think like successful people think. You can choose to focus on what you want instead of what you don't want. You can choose to look for opportunities instead of obstacles. You can choose to ask empowering questions instead of disempowering questions. Instead of asking, why me, ask, how can I use this? Instead of asking, what if it doesn't work? Ask, what if it does work? Instead of asking, why is this so hard? Ask, how can I make this easier? Instead of asking, why don't I have enough money? Ask, how can I create more value for others? The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. Now, let me tell you about the power of acting as if you already are what you want to become. This is one of the most transformative concepts you'll ever encounter. When you act like the person you want to be, when you think like the person you want to become, when you make decisions like the successful person you're becoming would make them, something magical happens. You begin to attract the circumstances, the opportunities, and the resources that are consistent with your new way of thinking and acting. If you want to become wealthy, start thinking and acting like a wealthy person thinks and acts. How does a wealthy person handle money? They're careful with it. They invest it wisely. They don't waste it on frivolous things. They look for ways to make their money work for them. They associate with other successful people. They read books about business and investing. They take calculated risks. They think long term. If you want to become healthy and fit, start thinking and acting like a healthy, fit person thinks and acts. How does a healthy person treat their body? They eat nutritious foods. They exercise regularly. They get enough sleep. They manage stress effectively. They surround themselves with other health-conscious people. They make their health a priority, not an afterthought. If you want to become successful in your career, start thinking and acting like a successful professional thinks and acts. How does a successful person approach their work? They're always learning and growing. They take initiative. They solve problems instead of creating them. They add value wherever they go. They build relationships. They take responsibility for their results. They think like an owner, not like an employee. You see, success leaves clues. Every successful person in every field follows certain patterns of thinking and acting. The good news is that these patterns can be learned. These ways of thinking can be adopted. These habits can be developed. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can model what works. But here's the key. You have to act as if you already are the person you want to become, even before you see the external evidence. This requires faith. This requires belief in yourself and in the process. This requires you to override the voice in your head that says, "Who are you kidding? You're not successful. You're not wealthy. You're not healthy. You're just pretending." That voice is the voice of your old programming, your old way of thinking. It's the voice of limitation, the voice of scarcity, the voice of fear. But you have a choice. You can listen to that voice, or you can choose to think differently. You can choose to think thoughts that serve you instead of thoughts that sabotage you. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Several years ago, I met a man who wanted to become a professional speaker. At the time, he was working in a factory making just enough money to get by, but he had a dream. He wanted to travel the world, sharing ideas that could help people improve their lives. He wanted to write books. He wanted to make a difference. Now, he could have looked at his current circumstances and said, "I'm just a factory worker. I don't have a college degree. I don't have any speaking experience. I don't have any connections in the industry. This dream is unrealistic." But instead, he chose to think and act like a professional speaker, even before he became one. He started studying successful speakers. He read their books. He listened to their recordings. He attended their seminars. He practiced speaking every chance he got. He joined Toastmasters. He volunteered to speak at local organizations for free. He started thinking of himself as a speaker who happened to work in a factory, rather than a factory worker who had a dream of speaking. And you know what happened? Within 2 years, he was making more money speaking part-time than he was making at the factory full-time. Within 5 years, he was one of the most sought-after speakers in his field. He earns more in a single speaking engagement than he used to make in an entire year at the factory. What made the difference? He changed his thinking first, then he changed his actions, and eventually his circumstances changed to match his new way of thinking and acting. He became what he thought about most consistently. This principle works in every area of life, but it requires discipline. It requires you to guard your mind like a security guard guards a bank. It requires you to be selective about what information you allow in and what thoughts you choose to dwell on. It requires you to develop what I call mental hygiene, the daily practice of cleaning up your thinking. Just like you brush your teeth every day to maintain good dental hygiene, you need to practice mental hygiene every day to maintain good thinking habits. This means starting your day with positive, constructive input. This means reading books that expand your mind instead of watching television that contracts it. This means associating with people who inspire you to be better instead of people who pull you down to their level. This means asking yourself regularly, what am I thinking about? Are these thoughts moving me toward my goals or away from them? Are these thoughts empowering me or limiting me? Are these thoughts helping me become the person I want to be or keeping me stuck where I am? You see, your thoughts create your feelings influence your actions, and your actions determine your results. If you want different results, you have to start with different thoughts. If you want to feel more confident, you have to think more confident thoughts. If you want to take more effective action, you have to think more empowering thoughts. If you want better results, you have to think better thoughts. But thinking alone is not enough. You must combine right thinking with right action. You must act on your thoughts. You must behave consistently with the person you're becoming. You must make decisions based on where you're going, not where you've been. You must invest your time, energy, and resources in activities that are consistent with your new identity. If you see yourself as a successful entrepreneur, how would you spend your time? Would you spend it watching television or reading business books? Would you spend it complaining about the economy or looking for opportunities? Would you spend it making excuses or making progress? Would you spend it with people who discourage your dreams or people who support your vision? The answer is obvious, isn't it? But here's what most people do. They say they want to be successful, but they continue to think and act like unsuccessful people. They want the results that successful people get, but they're not willing to pay the price that successful people pay. They want the destination, but they're not willing to take the journey. Success is not an accident. Success is not luck. Success is not a matter of circumstances or connections or being in the right place at the right time. Success is a matter of thinking and acting consistently with success over an extended period of time. Success is a matter of becoming the kind of person who attracts success. And how do you become that kind of person? You start by changing your thinking. You start by feeding your mind with positive, constructive, possibility-oriented thoughts. You start by studying successful people and modeling their patterns of thinking and acting. You start by acting as if you already are the person you want to become. Now, let me address something that stops many people from applying this principle. They say, but Jim, isn't this just positive thinking? Isn't this just pretending? Isn't this just wishful thinking? No, it's not. There's a big difference between positive thinking and right thinking. Positive thinking says everything is wonderful. Right thinking says everything is as it is, but I can choose how to respond to it. Positive thinking ignores problems. Right thinking acknowledges problems but focuses on solutions. Positive thinking is passive. Right thinking is active. Positive thinking hopes things will change. Right thinking changes things. When I talk about thinking like the person you want to become, I'm not talking about denial or fantasy or wishful thinking. I'm talking about aligning your thoughts with your goals, your values, and your vision for your life. I'm talking about thinking thoughts that serve you instead of thoughts that sabotage you. I'm talking about using your mind as the powerful tool it was designed to be. Your mind is not your master, your mind is your servant. But like any servant, it must be trained and directed. It must be given clear instructions. It must be supervised and corrected when it gets off track. Most people have this backwards. They let their minds run wild, thinking whatever thoughts happen to show up. And then they wonder why their lives are chaotic. But you can choose to be different. You can choose to take control of your thinking. You can choose to direct your mental energy toward outcomes that serve you. You can choose to think thoughts that empower you instead of thoughts that limit you. You can choose to act like the person you want to become instead of remaining stuck as the person you've always been. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this point perfectly. A young man once asked Socrates how to become wise. Socrates told him to meet him at the river the next morning. When the young man arrived, Socrates led him into the water until it was chest deep. Then suddenly Socrates grabbed the young man and held his head under the water. The young man struggled to get free, but Socrates held him down. Just before the young man would have drowned, Socrates pulled him up. Gasping for air, the young man demanded to know why Socrates had done this. Socrates replied, "When you want wisdom as badly as you wanted air, you will find it." The same principle applies to success, to wealth, to health, to happiness, to anything else you want in life. When you want it as badly as you want to breathe, when it becomes an obsession, when it dominates your thinking, you will find a way to achieve it. But most people don't want success that badly. They want it to be easy. They want it to be convenient. They want it to happen quickly and without effort. They want to think about success occasionally when they feel like it and somehow success show up in their lives. But it doesn't work that way. Success requires consistent, focused, disciplined thinking over an extended period of time. It requires you to think about your goals every day. It requires you to visualize your ideal life regularly. It requires you to make decisions based on where you want to be, not where you are now. It requires you to act like the successful person you're becoming, even when you don't feel like it. This is where most people fail. They're inconsistent. They think positive thoughts on Monday, negative thoughts on Tuesday, and neutral thoughts on Wednesday. They work on their goals when they feel motivated and ignore them when they don't. They act like successful people when things are going well and revert to old patterns when challenges arise. But success doesn't work that way. Success requires consistency. It requires you to think and act like a successful person every day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. It requires you to maintain your standards even when circumstances are difficult. It requires you to keep your vision alive even when temporary results suggest you're not making progress. This is what separates successful people from unsuccessful people. Unsuccessful people are controlled by their feelings. They do what they feel like doing. They think what they feel like thinking. They act based on their moods and circumstances. But successful people control their feelings. They do what needs to be done regardless of how they feel. They think thoughts that serve their goals regardless of their circumstances. They act based on their commitments, not their emotions. If you want to join the ranks of successful people, you must develop this same discipline. You must learn to control your thinking. You must learn to direct your mental energy toward outcomes that serve you. You must learn to act consistently with the person you're becoming, regardless of how you feel or what circumstances you're facing. Now, let me give you some practical strategies for implementing this principle in your daily life. First, start each day by reviewing your goals and visualizing your ideal life. Spend at least 10 minutes every morning thinking about where you want to be and what you want to accomplish. Picture yourself already achieving your goals. Feel what it would feel like to be the person you want to become. This sets the tone for your entire day and programs your subconscious mind to look for opportunities that are consistent with your vision. Second, throughout the day, monitor your thoughts. Catch yourself when you're thinking thoughts that don't serve you and consciously redirect your thinking toward thoughts that do serve you. This takes practice, but it gets easier over time. Remember, you can't control the first thought that pops into your head, but you can control the second thought and every thought after that. Third, ask yourself regularly, what would the person I want to become do in this situation? Then do that. Make decisions based on your future identity, not your past identity. Act consistently with the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. This single practice will accelerate your progress more than anything else you can do. Fourth, associate with people who think like you want to think and act like you want to act. The people you spend time with have a tremendous influence on your thinking. If you want to think like successful people think, spend time with successful people. If you want to think like healthy people think, spend time with healthy people. If you want to think like happy people think, spend time with happy people. Fifth, feed your mind with positive, constructive input every day. Read books that expand your thinking. Listen to recordings that inspire you. Watch videos that teach you something valuable. Attend seminars that challenge you to grow. Your mind is like a computer. The quality of the output depends on the quality of the input. Sixth, practice gratitude daily. Grateful thinking is powerful thinking. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, when you appreciate what's working instead of complaining about what's not working, you put yourself in a positive, resourceful state of mind. This attracts more things to be grateful for. Seventh, set aside time each week to review your progress and adjust your thinking if necessary. Are you thinking thoughts that are moving you toward your goals or away from them? Are you acting consistently with the person you want to become? Are you making progress toward your vision? If not, what adjustments do you need to make? Remember, becoming successful is not about getting lucky or being in the right place at the right time. It's about consistently thinking and acting like a successful person until you become one. It's about training your mind to focus on possibilities instead of problems, solutions instead of obstacles, opportunities instead of excuses. The power to transform your life lies within you. It lies in your ability to choose your thoughts. It lies in your ability to direct your mental energy toward outcomes that serve you. It lies in your ability to act like the person you want to become even before you see the external evidence. You see, most people have this backwards. They think they'll start acting like a successful person after they become successful. They think they'll start thinking like a wealthy person after they become wealthy. They think they'll start behaving like a healthy person after they become healthy. But it works the other way around. You become successful by first thinking and acting like a successful person. You become wealthy by first thinking and acting like a wealthy person. You become healthy by first thinking and acting like a healthy person. This requires faith. This requires belief in yourself and in the process. This requires you to act on incomplete information and trust that your consistent efforts will eventually produce the results you're seeking. This requires you to maintain your vision even when temporary circumstances suggest you're not making progress. But here's what I know from decades of studying successful people. This process works. It works for anyone who applies it consistently over time. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made in the past. What matters is what you choose to think and do from this moment forward. Your past does not equal your future. Your current circumstances do not determine your destiny. What determines your destiny is the quality of your thinking and the consistency of your actions. What determines your destiny is your willingness to act like the person you want to become, starting right now, today, this moment. So let me ask you again, what have you been thinking about? What thoughts have been dominating your mind? Are those thoughts consistent with the person you want to become and the life you want to become? If not, you have the power to change them. You have the power to choose different thoughts. You have the power to direct your mental energy toward outcomes that serve you. The time for making excuses is over. The time for blaming circumstances is over. The time for waiting for someone else to change your life is over. The time for taking control of your thinking and acting like the person you want to become is now. You have within you right now everything you need to begin transforming your life. You have the ability to think new thoughts. You have the ability to make new choices. You have the ability to take new actions. You have the ability to become the person you've always dreamed of becoming. But it starts with your thinking. It starts with making a decision about who you want to become and then thinking and acting consistently with that decision every single day. It starts with understanding that you become what you think about most of the time and then choosing your thoughts carefully and deliberately. The person you'll be 5 years from now will be determined by two primary influences, the books you read and the people you associate with. But even more fundamental than these is the thoughts you think. The thoughts you think today are creating your tomorrow. The thoughts you think this week are creating your future. The thoughts you think consistently over time are creating your destiny. So choose your thoughts wisely. Choose thoughts that empower you. Choose thoughts that inspire you. Choose thoughts that challenge you to grow. Choose thoughts that are consistent with the person you want to become. And then act on those thoughts. Make decisions based on those thoughts. Live your life consistently with those thoughts. Remember, you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are not limited by your current situation. You are a powerful, creative, intelligent being with the ability to think any thoughts you choose to think and to act on those thoughts in ways that create the life you desire. The question is not whether you can change your life. The question is whether you will change your life. The question is whether you'll take control of your thinking and start acting like the person you want to become. The question is whether you'll commit to this process and stick with it until you achieve the results you desire. I believe you can do it. I believe you have what it takes. I believe you can become the person you've always dreamed of becoming and live the life you've always wanted to live. But believing in you is not enough. You must believe in yourself. You must commit to the process. You must decide to think and act like the person you want to become starting right now. Your time is now. Your opportunity is here. Your future is waiting. What will you choose to think? How will you choose to act? Who will you choose to become? The power to answer these questions lies within you. Use it wisely. Use it consistently. Use it to create the extraordinary life you deserve. Act like you become what you think, because you do. Think like the person you want to be, because that's how you become that person. The transformation starts in your mind, but it must be expressed through your actions. Think it, then be it. Dream it, then do it. Envision it, then live it. This is the path to success. This is the way to an extraordinary life.